Right.
Hey, Emily, you're up.
Great. Hello, I'm Emily Preziotti, Community Wildlife Manager at the National Wildlife Federation. I'll be moderating the first career panel of EcoCareers 2023, highlighting some of our partners in our recently launched Climate Equity Collaborative Program. The CEC is a public-private partnership that was launched last year to support initiatives on climate education, children's environmental health, environmental justice, and innovation. The CEC's focus is on addressing the disproportionate impacts of climate change on vulnerable communities and youth. We are committed to engaging a range of diverse partners, particularly youth and historically marginalized communities, in accelerating climate planning, bold transformative initiatives, and development efforts. Today, we will get to know leaders from 4 of the founding organizations. They will share a bit of their personal and professional journeys, the work they do today, and their advice for youth seeking to make a difference in climate equity in their own future career paths. As each panelist is presenting, feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A box, and we will ask as many as we can after each panelist has presented. So we will start with Justin Harris. Justin is a senior advisor to the National Wildlife Federation's Climate Equity Collaborative. Previously, he served as a senior program manager at EPA's Office of International and Tribal Affairs for 11 years. At the EPA, he established the agency's second largest international program with direct oversight of programs addressing children's health, climate change, marine litter, e-waste management, enforcement and governance, sustainable schools, and environmental education. Justin also established one of the agency's earliest initiatives fusing equity, education, international opportunities for young people from tribal communities and other underserved groups. Justin graduated with a Master of Science in Foreign Service from Georgetown University and an undergraduate degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara. He also completed his executive education at the Harvard Business Analytics program in 2022. Justin, please tell us more about your own career path and your advice to young people interested in pursuing a career in climate equity.
Great, thanks Emily for the introduction, and also thanks to the whole NWF team for inviting me and including me in this conversation today. So like Emily said, I'm Justin Harris. I'm formerly of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, currently senior advisor to the National Wildlife Federation at the Climate Equity Collaborative. So I'm a bit of an accidental environmentalist. I've been in this space for around 12 years. I was at EPA for just over a decade. I grew up in Los Angeles. Our community was next to LAX, one of the nation's biggest airports. And air pollution was just a fact of life for us. And so I didn't know anything about the environment. My mother loved to jog in the morning. And so we would jog like 2 miles and we would just be coughing. Everybody in our class had asthma. It just never occurred to me that the air could be clean until I went to my undergrad in Santa Barbara, and much more beautiful in the pristine environment. When I was finishing my undergrad degree, I just felt like I didn't really know anything. And so I decided to spend an additional year of undergrad overseas. And I went to Hong Kong in '97. Do I look that old? I went to Hong Kong in '97 for a year. And then from there, I spent a few years in Taiwan. I did my master's in international affairs. And that's sort of when I started connecting the dots around pollution, because as some folks might know, in the Asia Pacific region, air pollution is a real serious challenge. The kids there were coughing and had asthma the way that we did, early onset of cancer as well, more frequently than even back home. So in LA. And so that really just, for me, fostered an interest in how we can address that challenge. And so I applied for a job at EPA. They needed someone that spoke Mandarin. And believe it or not, I speak Mandarin, and applied for a job at EPA. I didn't know anything about the environment. In fact, the guy that interviewed me, who's now a good friend, he said, and I apologize to my NWF colleagues who've heard this story hundreds of times probably, but my interviewer said, Justin is a nice person. He doesn't know anything about the environment. But his language is much more crude than that. And from there, I really just started a journey around environmental awareness. I didn't know anything, and slowly I began to immerse myself in the environmental issues, and got a chance to work with some of the nation's leading experts in whether it's air pollution or children's health, education, chemicals. How do chemicals affect the body, and then how can corporations and big organizations really step up and be a bigger part of the solution? What does it mean for the climate to be changing? And then how do we protect people that are most vulnerable in that changing climate? And how do we invite more people to be in that conversation? So these are all thoughts that started to occur to me quite late in my EPA career, honestly. And compared to some of my colleagues on the call, like Anse, who you'll hear from in a minute, Mike Burns, who was at EPA for much longer than me. Mike, you can tell them how long you were at the agency, but really, for me, was this journey around realizing that environmental impacts are not equally distributed. Some people are carrying a larger burden, and so in terms of this work that I'm doing at the National Wildlife Federation around public-private partnership, really thinking about how to invite more partners and organizations to this space, in the solution space, in terms of climate action, and to think more holistically about how we protect people in communities and recognize their voices, and take action, and provide more partners to be part of the solution, opportunity to be part of the solution. So that's a little bit about my background and my journey. And I'll just close with just a couple of thoughts in terms of my recommendations for anyone that's considering the climate equity space. And I guess firstly, you don't really need to know that much. Don't be afraid to immerse yourself in this space. The climate is changing. There will be more and more job opportunities, and every job will eventually be a climate job. And so, thinking about what your capacities are and your interests are, and then don't be ambitious about what you want to do, whether it's in the corporate sector or in the government or in the nonprofit space. There's just climate will be everywhere, and so there's a big opportunity, and more climate jobs in the future than even now. And then I guess the other recommendation I would have is just, if you're in school and you're thinking about the sort of coursework that will prepare you. For me, it was, it was those courses and those classes and those instructors that helped foster, I guess, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, collaboration skills, opportunity to work with others, know how to solve problems together, and then build partnership. So that's what my job here at NWF is. It's really, our business is collaboration and partnership and cooperation. And so I will stop there. That's my 6 minutes. But I, again, thank the team at NWF, especially David and Emily, and also my colleagues that have joined, Sonal and Mike Burns and Nsé, and joined us for this session today. So I will stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Next, you'll hear from Nsé Oba Witherspoon. So Nsé serves as the Executive Director for the Children's Environmental Health Network, where her responsibilities include organizing, leading, and managing policy, education and training, and science-related programs. Nsé has been a key spokesperson for children's vulnerabilities and protection, and she serves on the External Science Board for the Environmental Influences on Children's Health Outcomes NIH research work, co-leads the Health and Science Initiative of the Cancer-Free Economy Network, and is co-chair of the National Environmental Health Partnership Council. Nsé has held past appointments on the Children's Health Protection Advisory Committee for the EPA, the NIH Council of Councils, the Science Advisory Board for CDC, and the board for the American Public Health Association. She has a Bachelor of Science in Biology Pre-Med from Siena College and a Master of Public Health in Maternal and Child Health from the George Washington University School of Public Health and Health Services. Nsé, thank you so much for joining us today. Please describe your career path and advice.
Thank you, Emily. It's an honor, and really an honor to be with my friends here. This is always fun. I do a lot of mentoring, like I'm sure a lot of us, and it's not official, right? It's someone that needs to just get on the phone and talk things through. And I was doing that coming home from the office today, and it was just getting me geared up for tonight. But, like many, I haven't had this straight path by any means. In fact, the notion of public health wasn't even brought up in any of my undergraduate journey at all. And even before that, like many of you, I had initial passions for other things that were they're connected, but definitely not as close to where I ended up. Architecture was one early on, marine biologist, because I had this thing for dolphins and the ocean and intrigued about the mysteries of all of that, but kind of morphed by middle school into, which is still early, right? I mean, we have, our oldest is in college, a sophomore, and our second oldest is looking at college now. And, you know, it's tough at 17 to think about what do I want to do with the trajectory of my life. So I'll get into some of that in some of my advisement, but it's still nerve-wracking, right? To think, especially if you're a type A like me, you have a plan, you execute the plan, and you move forward, and, you know, you start on this journey, and any deviation from that could be seen as failure or, you know, not staying the course or whatever. I'm also Nigerian, so there's a very strong background there to, you know, strong education. And then there are these buckets traditionally that happen growing up: medicine, engineering, maybe teaching, you know, law. You know, there were these buckets, traditional buckets. But I would say I kind of came into pediatrics on my own. It was around middle school. I just started having this gravity towards, just like Justin mentioned, as you start to grow, you start to become aware. You're not just in your childhood bubble anymore. Life is happening around you. And I am part of a very socially aware family, I guess, which I do appreciate. They allowed us to ask questions and to, you know, see a bit of what was going on within reason, and to kind of navigate those and not wait, you know. So the connection to children, the passion for protecting our most vulnerable was there at an early age, I will say. So I gravitated towards pediatrics. I did all the things that I was taught to do. My own family pediatrician was one of my stellar mentors. Every summer did a, you know, biomedical research gig at the Children's Hospital of Buffalo. I mean, all these things, you know, had all the mentors in place, got into a decent pre-med program, was on that trajectory. And it was around junior year of college, very late for this kind of thing, where I just sat back and I just realized I'm miserable, right? And I'm sure I could have gone on and done fine as an individual practitioner, which we need. But I started just asking these questions that my advisor was not positioned to answer. He was very good at getting folks into med school or an osteopathic school or a PA school, physician's assistant, or research, you know, all these things. And I said, yeah, those are all interesting. Maybe that'll be a piece of the pie, but there's something I'm tugging at that I can't even articulate. And this was only, Justin, I would say 97-ish, not too late here, I hope. And I kind of stumbled into public health. It was a good friend of mine, also graduating from Brown University with the same eureka moment, and not really figuring out on how to scratch that itch, you know. And we literally found the few schools of accredited public health at that time. She ended up at Emory, I ended up at GW. And I guess that's what you will say history happened at that point. It was very nerve-wracking. It was very scary. I took, kind of saved up whatever little money I had, moved to Washington, D.C. and tried this out. A lot of folks were not exactly understanding what I was doing to this day. I have family members that don't necessarily all understand all of what we do, and that's fine. But I knew in my heart there was a passion that I had to fulfill. I had no other training in environmental health other than one course that Dr. John Belbis, now at the Health and Human Services, was teaching. So to this day, I kind of joke around with him about that, but it's okay, right? I mean, that passion, in my humble opinion, when it comes to a set of advisement, it's that passion, that drive, what gets you up and going, what gets you excited. It doesn't mean every day is this amazing day. There are challenges in all of this work. There are times when you step back and wonder if you are making a difference, right? I'm sure all my friends here can attest to that. But for me, is it the job? Is it the position? Is the work that you're doing that is somehow not motivating you anymore to get up and do it? I think whenever you get to a point where that's happening, it's time to think about something else. So, you know, we all have different skill sets. We all have different passions. You don't have to be, you know, we're not experts in everything by any means. I'm still growing and learning every single day. I think that is what I enjoy. So after grad school, I went to GW in maternal and child health. And there were two jobs offered. One was at the federal government in the Office of Minority Research. That would have been doing HIV/AIDS related focus groups and intentional work and traveling. At the time, I didn't have kids yet. I wasn't married. It was intriguing. And then another one was a nonprofit called the Children's Environmental Health Network that was moving from California to Washington, D.C., maybe just out of karma, I don't know, literally at the same time that I was graduating. And it was, you know, difference in salary and all those things. But one of my trusted mentors to this day, my dad and my parents just kept asking me, what does your gut tell you? You know, and it was everything from the commute time in DC to everything. I at least knew at that point, I wanted to think about what was going to be the type of position that would allow me to live the type of life I'm trying to live and not necessarily grovel, even if I'm passionate for the work. So I would just advise, follow your passions. I ended up going to the Children's Environmental Health Network. I started doing education, outreach, communication first year. I was deputy director by the second year. It's not a natural trajectory by any means. And then I was executive director by 28. And that was in 2004. So it's been a bit of a journey here and a lot on the job learning. And a lot of that has been surrounding myself with amazingly talented people who wanted to see me be successful in order to do the work and to see this organization be successful. So people that invested in me personally and people that have invested in our mission. And whether you're an executive director or a program lead or any other array of public health leader in the environmental health justice or climate space, there is a place for you. We need all and every voice possible. The type of comprehensive transition of systems approach that we need at the community level to truly primarily protect people, everyone, especially our most vulnerable, requires all of us to think and act urgently about how we bring our best selves, I do believe, to the table here. I would also advise, take some risks. You know, I mean, again, I was very much brought up in a household where, you know, you chart your course, you make your plan, you move through it. Diverting from that was just uneasy, right? So kind of allow yourself to explore, whether it's those internships you're not really sure about, maybe want to get your feet wet, or fellowships. I think it's just as much of a learning experience to find out something that you're not as interested in as it is something that you are. So at least you can rule something out and never wonder what if. Try not to lean into regrets, right? Take advantage of getting on the phone and talking and networking, no matter where you are and whether it's a program you're in or a community service type of work you're doing. I mean, there's always opportunity to learn and grow. I would say also stay connected with people. You know, so this work has to rely on us working and engaging with each other. It's a must. It will not work, right? If we're not at a human level, listening to each other, exploring, even when we're maybe not agreeing on the same topic, how do we come to some sense of middle ground so we can move forward for the work that we're trying to promote, for the communities we're trying to serve? And don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? I mean, there are definitely, and there continue to be missteps. I'm certainly not perfect, but you know, you learn from each and every one of those. So I mean, like you've all heard, surrounding yourself with people that you believe you can learn from and who can learn from you, because it's always bilateral, encouraging and challenging yourself to reach the next level, whatever that is, whether it's getting familiar with science you're not familiar with, that's going to come back and help you in your work and your policy, or if it's being a mentor to others, you know, all of it counts and all of it is an investment. So those are just some of the high level pieces for me, and I'm sure I know we're gonna get into more discussion in our panel. So thank you.
Thank you, Ansai. Next, we will hear from Mike Burns. Mike Burns earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the United States Naval Academy and spent 8 years in the Navy. Afterwards, he worked from technical to management to director positions at Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, Fort Dix, the Army Reserve, and Navy Region Southeast, and became the Chief of Engineering for new construction, environment, and repair for the Southeast region of the National Park Service. He created the College Underserved Community Partnership Program for the EPA, where he was hired to run the program, engaging 70 colleges and universities to provide pro bono technical assistance to over 50 underserved communities across 20 states. He is currently the founder and executive director of the Community and College Partners Program, which is engaged in projects from Alaska to the Bahamas and works with 50 colleges and universities. His partners include the U.S. Department of Interior, American Geophysical Union, Environmental Defense Fund, Engineers Without Borders, Environmental Protection Network, and FEMA. Mike, you've worn a lot of hats during your career. Tell us about how you've gotten to where you are today and what advice you have for young people. You are on mute too right now.
Thank you for allowing me to participate, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear from the other panel participants and also from the questions that come afterwards. You learn as much from the questions as you do when you give the answers, so I appreciate it. I guess you would say I have traveled the road less traveled by. The Naval Academy was not a choice that I made, but as my father said, it's free. And that was where I decided to go. The good part was going to 20 different countries and learning about cultures other than your own, to understand that there were different ways that people lived, that different ways that people experience satisfaction, life, family, and enjoyment. And that was spiritually very satisfying for me to be able to participate in that. When I left the Navy, I had a series of jobs, and I would tell all the people that are listening, every job I've ever taken is because I thought it was going to be inordinately challenging. I've always taken positions that I thought would be very difficult to do something with, because you never find out what you're truly capable of unless you're willing to challenge yourself to the nth degree. So I've always tried to do that. That's why I've done different positions. When I have done everything that I can possibly do, I look around, yawn, and say, okay, I'm bored. Let's go do something else. And that's how I ended up doing a lot of different positions. But what set me on the path that I'm on now, when I was with the National Park Service, I was a superintendent in Alabama for the Tuskegee Airmen Site, the Selma and Montgomery Trail, and the Tuskegee Institute. And we were doing some work with the city of Selma, and the person who was leaving told me, they said, well, don't bother with Selma because you'll never get them organized. Well, I'm the kind when you say it can't be done, okay. I rub my hands and I say, okay, let's do this. So it took a lot of work to get it done. You had to start in groups of 2, and then groups of 4, and then groups of 8, and meet with, this, religious group and this business group, with the African-American community, with the white community, with different constituents, with the mayor, with city council. But the last meeting I had there, we had all the political types, including representatives from the federal offices, religious people from both sides of the spectrum, economic sides of both of the spectrum, both sides of the racial perspective, all different constituents, 53 in all signed a commitment to support the development of something that we wanted to do along the main street of Selma. And what that taught me was we have more in common than we have opposite, but we tend to focus on what we don't agree on than rather what we do agree on. So that it was also possible to get things done with just different groups of people if you're willing to learn, listen, and find ways to connect people. So I went back and, to my job with the Park Service. A year later, I met some people from the EPA, and I said, we were talking about different things. I said, I had this kind of crazy idea about getting colleges to help, poor communities. And the regional administrator at the time, was giving a lunchtime speech, and I had mentioned it to her, and she stood up and she said at the end of her presentation, I want you to meet Michael Burns, who has this program to help colleges help poor communities. So I literally turned around and looked behind me like, wow, there's another Mike Burns here. So she said, no, I'm talking to you. And I said, I don't have a program. I just got an idea in the back of my head. And she said, well, I thought if we embarrassed you, you'd be willing to try to do that. So I said, sure, I'll give it a try. So I went to EPA on a 3-month detail, never went back to the Park Service. It took me 18 months to get the first school to agree because essentially I wanted to do it pro bono, to get the schools to understand that there's a value to giving students the opportunity to do projects as seniors or master's students in their area of academic study that lets them put their education to work, do real projects for real people, to know that the work they were doing was actually helping people and making a difference in the lives of those people. And at the same time, giving you a chance to put something on your resume. So when you graduate, you can talk about what you did, not just about what you learned. So, but it still took 18 months to get the first school to agree. So we started with 4, we got to 13, we got to 35, we got to 50. And in 2019, when we had 70 across the country, we've done about 150 projects. And, you know, one of the key things that we, you know, fundamentally, when I created the program, was we would never tell communities what we would give them. We would always ask them what they need, because small and poor doesn't mean dumb and ignorant. They know where they want to go. My job is to try to help them to get to where they want to go, because when you do it that way, it's got enduring value. You're not spending resources, you're investing resources. So, you know, some people in the previous administration had another way of wanting to do that. That's perfectly fine. As I told them, please feel free to do you. I am going to do me. I retired on Friday, and Monday I filed paperwork for my own 501c3. So did I have a little bit of agita in doing that? Absolutely. But we are now 3 years later. We have done almost 60 projects. We're doing work from Alaska to the Bahamas. We're working with 2 AI projects in Canada. I've got an MOU with American University in Kazakhstan, who also wants to do some work with us. We just had a conversation with people to do some work in Africa that we'll do with Columbia University and a student from Georgia State University. I have found this, and I would tell students this: every job I ever had, once I've taken it as far as it can go, I was always left wondering what's next. This is the first opportunity for me to do something where there will always be a what's next, because there are so many people that need help, so many places that we can try to help. And it is an opportunity where I am every day finding out the extent of my full potential to be able to do something. I sleep good at night and I wake up great and refreshed in the morning, because I know the work I'm doing is making a difference in the lives of people. So, you know, some of the things that people have told you are great things, but I would tell you this: never take a job where it's easy. Take the jobs where it's hard, because that's where you find out what you really can do. And at the end of the day, and this may sound crazy, but I have found it to be true, believe me, money is overrated. Find where your passion is and do what you love. Because if you do what you love, you'll put everything you have into it, and you'll get more gratification from that than any dollar or bank account can possibly provide. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Mike. Lastly, we'll hear from Sonal Jessel. Sonal Jessel is the Director of Policy at We Act for Environmental Justice. She leads the New York policy team and is responsible for advancing the organization's policy agenda at the local, state, and national levels, in addition to leading the Northern Manhattan Climate Action Plan. Sonal works with local, city, and state leaders to advance policy changes that improve environmental health and advances a just transition. She is appointed to the New York State Climate Justice Working Group. Prior to joining We Act, she conducted research in energy and security, housing, and public health at Columbia University. Sonal has a master in public health and population and family health with a concentration in climate and health from Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, and a bachelor's degree in biology from Pitzer College in California. Sonal, thank you for joining us today. You know the drill, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Emily. I feel like I've gained a lot from this webinar so far. So thank you to my 3 panelists before me. I feel there's a lot that we can all relate on. And I think the thing that I'm pulling out from all of this is that every single person has such a wonky, different, unique path. And I think that's an important thing for everyone listening to remember, is that you never know where life is going to take you. My cousin once told me when I was younger, like, life is kind of random. Walk through the doors that open for you, and you never know where you're going to end up. And I've always tried to keep that in mind, and somehow got to where I am today. But yeah, I mean, I grew up always thinking I was going to do something that was like good for the world and helped people. I always cared about the environment. I grew up in a family that was mindful of our impact on the planet, on the world, that valued nature, also valued the idea that we are but one family and everyone else also needs resources and everyone else also needs to be taken care of. And we should be mindful of taking our fair share of what the world has to offer us, whatever fair means in the context of all of this. And so I grew up very mindful of the importance of the environment, and also grew up very mindful about social justice, and also kind of grew up in a very socially conscious family, and was very much taught about the injustices of the world very early on by my parents and other family members that had their eyes wide open about how immigration works, how race works, how the United States works. What does it mean to explore all sorts of different forms of hardship or insecurity or injustice. Learned a lot about feminism from a very young age. All of this was really helpful for me because it gave me a very strong insight and strong desire to continue to work towards supporting people and righting wrongs of the world that bothered me. And so, but I grew up like sort of not knowing what I wanted to do, knowing that I cared about people, knowing that I was interested in health very generally. I thought that meant, so similar to what we've already heard, I thought that meant I had to be a doctor because I didn't know that public health existed as a concept. But when you think about it, it's everywhere. I mean, like a seatbelt law is public health, and you don't even realize that until you like sit there in school and they tell you what is public health. I had no concept of that for a very long time. So I spent a lot of high school and then all of my undergrad trying to be a doctor, going through all the pre-med classes, almost literally failing at them, doing really badly, really struggling through it, but feeling like that was my path. And then I ended up working at a hospital after college, doing clinical research, working with doctors. And I sort of still continued to have this feeling like I wasn't doing the work that I felt like I wanted to do, that I wasn't working sort of on this population level, this systems level, that I was kind of feeling an underlying desire for, versus what we do in a hospital, which is a little bit more focused on the individual, focused on an individual pathology versus sort of a system level issue in terms of health. And that was the moment that I started to learn about public health and that there was another pathway for me. And so then I ended up applying for programs and going to Columbia University. What really guided me in that process was I did find a mentor. I found someone who worked in the hospital that was doing global health research, that was from the same background as my mom, which is in India and Punjab, and was doing research on, from her perspective, is very human rights based about the rights of farmers in northern India. But for me, it actually ended up being kind of based on environment without realizing it. It was about how people are struggling to pay the bills because they can't grow food because the Green Revolution ruined their soil. And that was a really compelling story to me. And so I ended up getting a lot of guidance from her in terms of what I wanted to do in life. And then I ended up going to public health school, focusing on climate and health, and focusing on that sort of population level work. And was very interested in keeping my work local, living in New York City for a long time, going to school in New York City. I really wanted to work on a granular level when it came to climate and environmental issues. I saw a lot of problems just around me every single day as I walk through the streets. I saw air pollution, I saw bad sanitation, I saw a lack of clean water, I saw all of these different things, and felt like I would love to be able to really kind of operationalize my interest where I live. So I was studying New York City in a really, really hyper local way while I was at school, and ended up finding my next mentor, who's a professor there, who got me involved in air pollution study in the South Bronx, working with residents that live there, talking about, what are you dealing with? Why do you feel like your air quality is not good? What are the solutions you want to see? Like, what do you think are the barriers to improving air quality, both in your home and your neighborhood? And really being guided by what they think and what they say in terms of how we kind of found solutions for issues. And that's what set me on my path at We Act, which is now a community-based organization in Harlem that focuses at one scale really locally on issues in Northern Manhattan, but we're also leaders in the environmental justice movement, both when it comes to citywide work, statewide work, and national work as well. But I'm able to kind of, in my position in the policy work, understand what community members are dealing with, what are the sort of daily struggles, what are the perceived barriers for dealing with climate change, for example, and turning that into policy solutions and really fighting for it and going after it. And it was really, I just think it was very lucky that this organization had a position open right when I was looking for a job. I think there was probably a lot of people that wanted the job that I got because it is such a special organization in New York City. But I got lucky. I don't know how else to say it. I do think that's kind of part of, just following the doors that open for you. Going back to what I said in the beginning is take the opportunities that come to you. And since then, I've been just trying to continue doing just that.
Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you to all of our panelists here today. We're now going to transition to the Q&A portion of the panel. So the first question is to all the panelists. Reflecting back to when you first embarked on your career paths, what professional skills did you consider important then? And do you feel the same way now? Or are there important skills that you were unaware of at the time? Whoever would like to kick things off.
So as an employee and then as now an employer, I think these all still apply. Grant writing, right? So one of my strongest, I loved every single one of my courses in grad school. I loved, like, that's how closely now I was aligned once I finally got into that public health program. But the grant writing course that I took, and we did a whole mock government grant, in my opinion, if you can handle beginning to end of a large government grant, and in this case, we weren't just doing it for a mock, we were doing it with a local nonprofit in Washington, D.C. So we really wanted to give our all. And they actually ended up getting their funding, which was a nice bonus on top. Grant writing, development, no matter where you sit, whether you're in government, whether you're in consulting, whether you're in nonprofit work or beyond, odds are you're probably going to be connected to the development cycle in some way, shape, or form, whether it's maintaining your own salary and that of your staff or your program, or maybe you're part of reviewing such things and making these very tough decisions of where limited capacity goes. Highly support that skill set. Strong communications, and I would think on many modes, right? It's oral, it's written, it's also social media now, and the different ways that different platforms on social media work. So it doesn't mean you have to be an expert. I'm certainly don't, I don't speak like, in my opinion, President Obama was a great orator, in my opinion, and there's many great gradients in between, but many of us, like the Children's Environmental Health Mission, I never told you, is to protect all children from environmental hazards, including the developing child. And if you can't make your case in a quick way, a succinct way, depending on your audience and timing, you may lose out on some key opportunities. So it's essential that nonprofits must have your case ready to go, and the people, your messengers, ready to go. And I would just add two more: humility, because again, you're going to make mistakes, and I'm looking for people who are at least going to lean in on their passions, lean in on their persuasions, lean in on what they believe is the right way to go about something. And they may make a mistake or two. I'm okay with that, as long as we can learn from that mistake and hopefully rebuild. And then finally, I'll say self-starter, right? Like that, not everybody has it, but there's a certain energy of what you bring to your work. So again, doing what you can on your off work time to make sure that you are as whole of a person as possible, getting your rest, getting your exercise. I mean, we're in public health. We have to be promoting these things. It's not always perfect, but you come to your work in a much better, refreshed, as Mike said, way, when you can take care of those human needs and come in a self-starting type mode. It doesn't mean you go rogue, but it does mean, in nonprofit work anyway, we do need people who can jump in and start initiating. And then we check in, and then we advise each other, and we have touch points so that we make sure we're going in the right direction. We really are looking for those people who are hungry and those people who want to move on their passions. And I'll stop there.
I would agree with all of that. You do need a certain amount of intestinal fortitude to hang in there when things are getting tough. And I learned that, when you're an African American in America, you learn that early. So, but you need that regardless of your ethnic background, because it's important to understand that. But as I got older, there were two things that were critically important that I wish I had really realized the worth of those when I was young. One was learning how to listen. And that's not to hear people, but that's to listen to people. Really important, because you will learn so much by listening to what people are saying and get a chance to think about what they said, to analyze what they said, and learn how to incorporate that into what you need to know so that you can be the beneficiary of other people's knowledge without having to learn it yourself. Really, really important. And the other thing that I learned later that I wish I had known earlier was learning how to be still. I am hyperactive type A, like, but sometimes you have to just be still and let the moment come to you rather than trying to push for the moment to come to you. Sonal talked about the open door. You don't know which door is going to open. Sometimes you have to wait for it to open. So you have to learn how to be still sometimes. So, those are not necessarily things that there's classes on, that there's educational seminars, but they are really important for you to be able to gain the knowledge that makes a difference between being completely successful and just being kind of successful.
I really agree with that. I just want to add one quick thing, which is learn how to deal with conflict and stand up for yourself. That's something that is maybe hard for a lot of us to do. Takes a lot of training. I'm still in training. But you're going to come up against people that have different ideas from you, or like you have the same overall goal and intention. You're just coming up with a different pathway and you need to have only one pathway. And there's a lot of things that come up that are not like fighting conflict, but just kind of daily conflicts of working with a lot of people all the time. And I think that's a really hard thing to learn that will benefit you greatly if you learn early.
Nothing really to add to all those great answers. That was all very full.
Yes, thank you so much. Those were really fantastic answers. So our next question comes from Maddie DeMarco. How might we find environmental public health organizations at the local area level in areas that aren't as urban as New York City? And any panelists can provide their insight.
So part of what we do too, we've been a strong, I'd say, connector for 30 some years of our organization. So when people call, we first ask, where are you geographically, right? And we automatically start onboarding. Hey, do you know about this group, that group? So just, even by connecting, I'm sure with any one of us or anyone that you respect and trust in your locality can help you probably think through other partners, other groups you might want to be talking to, other organizations for starter. And it's not a surprise anymore. Sometimes we even connect some of our federal government partners to different offices of their own, so hearing and being the eyes and ears we can't know everything, but at times it is helpful when you're also talking with your partners about what you've learned that's happening. I would also say that we act like a clearinghouse sometimes. So even in the larger public health space, these collaboratives, these coalitions that we're a part of, it's very intentional because we make so much stronger progress forward than by ourselves, and it gives us more capacity. We're not a huge nonprofit, right? But we're mighty, as I might say. And so we have the benefit of all of those relationships. So I think it just comes down to what many of us have been saying. It's connect with any one of us, and or I do a lot on searching. Now this internet engines that we have, it is amazing what comes up by typing it, in my case, children's environmental health in the Midwest. And then you'll see who pops up, like in the top 10. It's amazing. Or any other type of increase. So between your own quick 5 minutes, you'd be surprised might come up, including funders and other partners or policies you're looking for or what have you. But for more of an intentional, there are groups that we know that follow policy, for example, at the national level, at the state level. There are groups that track certain progresses. We have Children's Environmental Health Day every October, every second Thursday of October. So we try to track children's environmental health events and activities now around the world. So we have this growing clearinghouse of evidence-based solutions that are making a difference at community, regional, state, national levels. So that would be my answer to take advantage of these connections, any of us here or any of the partnerships you have, by just asking that very same question, because you'd be surprised how quickly you can, fill in an inbox or, your list with identities and ways that you might want to do some follow-up with very meaningful organizations for your work.
Great. Well, thank you, Nsei. And if there's no other additional comments from the other panelists, we're actually going to transition the session to the workshop portion at this time. So I'd just like to say thank you so much to all the panelists for joining and for sharing your personal and professional experiences and journeys, and for giving fantastic guidance to those that have attended this session and to young professionals. So I will turn it over to David to introduce the workshop.
Oh, hi, everyone. Sorry about that. We are new to some of Zoom's functionality with the backstage. So thank you all for participating in this panel. And Emily, thank you for moderating. We're going to go ahead and switch over to our workshop stage. And I'm very happy to introduce our career planning workshop presenter for today. Dr. Ari Renda is a career coach and wellness coach who works as the Associate Director of Career Development at the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. They have more than 7 years of experience working with undergraduate students, graduate students, and alumni in navigating their career journeys, especially within the environmental field. In their previous role at the School of Environment and Sustainability at the University of Michigan, they specialized in supporting students who were interested in environmental justice to find meaningful career paths that aligned with their values and goals. RE centers inclusivity in their career services approach through affirming the ways that students' unique perspectives, experiences, motivations, and backgrounds shape their career exploration processes. Ari, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours. I'll be here to help facilitate questions from the audience. And y'all, please send in your questions, either the chat box or the Q&A box. We'd like to make this as helpful and customized for you as possible. You're up, Ari.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for your patience as I set up my screen. Can everybody see the screen share that I have set up? Yeah.
Looks good.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be here with you all. And I titled the workshop for today, Find Your Path, Environmental Career Exploration. And we heard some amazing insights from the panelists. And so my role and my goal for our time together today is to give you all some really concrete tools in order to put everything that you heard in the panel into practice. And so We're going to start off. I have, the image of a map here, thinking about finding your path. And so what does that look like within specifically the environmental space? And so we're going to start off, again, really providing some tools, some resources, some questions, prompts for you all to think through, where is your path? Where are you headed? And have some action steps from all of the amazing insights that you've received from the panelists and throughout your time at the conference. So first, we're going to talk about reflecting on yourself and your dreams, and thinking about what would you do, right? So I was talking with an alum from my program the other day, and one of the things that she shared was, I didn't realize that I could dream up anything that I wanted to do. I thought that I had to choose something that was in a specific box that I had already seen. And you have the ability to dream up and think about, what are your interests? What would be an amazing career that would be ideal for you? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about building connections. And I heard our amazing panelists sharing about reaching out to them. And so that's awesome connection that you already have. And then thinking about, okay, so we had some reflections on what you might want to do, where you're building connections, and then testing it out. So what would this potentially look like? Trying it out, seeing if you enjoy that. And then a little bit about talking about yourself and the amazing work that you've been doing as you're testing it out, who you are, what are your skills. And then lastly, we'll talk about creating that plan. So as I'm going through the workshop today, I'd encourage you all to take some notes. Because I'm going to come back at the end and say, okay, so out of everything that we talked about, what is your plan? What are you going to do based on all of the ideas and resources and prompts that I shared? So the first one, reflecting on your dreams. Where are you headed? As I said, you can create this. This is not something where it's a predetermined box and you just have to check it and say, I'm doing this. So how could you put this dream together? So here are some different self-reflection prompts, right? So we have thinking about your interests. So what classes have you liked? Which ones have you said, this is really enjoyable for me? I really want to do more. What about extracurricular activities that you've engaged in? Is it writing? Is it art, right? What types of things that have been really exciting and engaging for you, where the time is just going by and you might not even notice. And I'm going to keep an eye on the chat and everything. So if you all have thoughts, ideas, questions as I'm going through this, please share in the chat and the Q&A. And then which environmental issues are most interesting to you? And so is there a specific environmental issue that you're drawn to? Is that water, air, waste, energy, right? So something specifically catching your interest and appealing to you. Skills, thinking about what activities or tasks that you've done in the past that you've enjoyed. So maybe that's a part-time job. Maybe that's a club that you've been a part of. What types of tasks in those clubs have you enjoyed? Have you enjoyed facilitating meetings? Have you enjoyed talking to people, right? So thinking through, what have I done and what have I enjoyed? And then here's a list of some different skills. So is it research? Is it organization? Is it teamwork? I was working with a student who said, I've been doing research for my entire time at undergrad, and I realized I don't like it. And so it's one thing to be able to do a skill, and it's another thing to actually enjoy the skill. So do you enjoy, does it feel energizing when you're working on this skill? And then thinking about workplace characteristics. I think sometimes people say, okay, there's a job, I see the job description, I have to apply for it because it's a job and I need a job. This whole process of self-reflection is about taking a step back first and saying, what do I want from a job? Do I want an environment where I have a really supportive supervisor? Do I want an environment where I can be myself and I can really feel great walking into the space and feel really comfortable? Do I want a work environment where I have a great work-life balance, where I can end the day at 5 and go home? Do I want a job where I don't end the day at 5 and it's very flexible and I get to decide when I want to work and how I want to work? Do you like things that are very, fast-paced and changing? We're going to talk about different types of careers in a moment. So consulting, right? So many different things happening. Sometimes people are really engaged and excited about that. Or are you somebody who wants something that's a little bit more steady? You have a normal routine each day that you stick to, right? If you don't know all of the answers, that's something that you can acquire as you're testing things out. So maybe you're working a part-time job and there's not a good work-life balance and you feel like you're always taking things home. So you know for your priority for your first job that is going to be a top priority that you're looking for. So make a list of all these things, right? Your interests, what's exciting to you, what tasks and skills you enjoy using, what are workplace characteristics that are really important to you that you want, what, is that, and thinking about salary too, including that in your workplace characteristics. So you're building this map, right, of all the things that are going to be really interesting and important to you in the type of work. This is building your dream. And then the next step that we're going to think about to even hone in a little bit more into the environmental field, which would be, here are some different environmental career areas to think about. And so you got to hear from our panelists about some careers within environmental justice field, climate equity. And so that would be one area that you could say, this is a topic that I'm really interested in. This is a area that I want to focus on. So we have that here. Thinking about environmental justice, public health, community engagement. Maybe you're a little bit more interested within the science field. So we have conservation science and management, environmental and urban planning, environmental communications and fundraising. So folks are always going to need support in terms of getting out their message, whether that's an environmental justice message, a conservation message, thinking about environmental consulting. So this would be an opportunity, environmental consulting, to say, because I think sometimes folks aren't sure what environmental consulting refers to. And so for those people that are just kind of wanting to learn a little bit more about that field, this would be, for example, a utility company wants to build some infrastructure, wants to build some plumbing, right, through a park. And so in order to build that plumbing, they have to get license in order to do that. And so the environmental consulting person, they have knowledge within the field of the environmental area. So they would go and they would analyze the impact that the plumbing and the pipelines would have within that area. And then they would report back to that company and write up and say, this is all of the significance, this is the impacts that this would have. Would that fit within the litigation requirements of the work that you're trying to do with the EPA? So what you get to do is kind of be that liaison between doing field work, doing tests, understanding what the impact of certain projects would be, writing up the reports, sharing those with companies to make sure that the work that they are doing fits within environmental regulations. And so sometimes people are really excited about environmental consulting because it provides you the opportunity to do hands-on field work and use environmental science skills while also doing some office work, some desk work, some reporting, and people skills. Lots of work. Happy to share more about what environmental consulting entails, but that's one that I like to give a little bit more background on in case folks aren't as familiar. Environmental education. This could be in so many different areas. This could be within a traditional school setting. This could be on a farm. This could be in a garden. This could be in a park, doing what's called interpretive work. So thinking about what are some of the different forest or fauna that you would want to share about and share that with the folks that are visiting the park. We talked about, had a beautiful panel for environmental justice, public health and community engagement, environmental mapping and technology. So GIS skills, if you're thinking about data and technology and mapping is exciting to you, environmental policy, advocacy and law. Lots of work there, food systems and sustainable agriculture, sustainability in business. So thinking about how businesses can become more sustainable, looking at their the carbon footprints and all of the materials that they put together and how that impacts the environment and ways for they to be more sustainable, writing up those plans, doing analysis and assessments, and then sustainable energy. So these are a lot of different areas within the environmental field. And what I would recommend doing is looking through some of these, finding the ones that are exciting and interesting to you. This will help you narrow in on your next steps, which is to build connections. So I have several tabs here. These are all for the presentation. What we're going to do is kind of give you some examples of what the process could look like of honing in on some of these areas. So maybe take a moment, just glance at these, say, oh, this one is really exciting to me. And then as we go through the presentation, I'll show you what you can do in order to do some further research into these. All right, so you're building the dream. You're saying, these are my skills, these are my interests, this is the environmental career area that I'm interested in, this is the type of workplace characteristics, and now it's time to tell people about it, because through those connections, folks can say, actually, I know somebody who does something similar, who uses those skills, who has those interests, is working in that environmental area. Let me connect you with them so you can learn about the work that they're doing. So here are some questions to start out with acting on your dreams. So what are your dreams for how you would like to affect transformation within the environmental field? So that's a starting place, right? So if you were going to step back and say, this is what I would like this is the change that I want to affect, what would that be? And so thinking through that, a big question, but somewhere to start and something to chat about with people that are close to you in your life. And then thinking about what organizations or people would be helpful to connect with in order to accomplish those dreams. And then how will you connect with them? So these are our starting questions, some prompts to get us going. And then what we're going to do now is talk about how to start to build those connections. So as I mentioned earlier, we had our amazing panelists offer to connect with you, but also thinking about how can you start to build a connection map based on all of the work that you put into brainstorming around your dreams. So we have some different examples here. So where to look. So I am going to show you citizen research, right? Participatory research. We're going to look into just Googling. So what we can do here is, I'm at the University of Michigan. That's an example of a school. So we're going to start with looking for your school. So we have University of Michigan. What I just did was University of Michigan food organizations, because say that was my environmental area. I'm interested in food. So what we found here, we have the Sustainable Food Systems Initiative, Food Recovery Network, Sustainable Food Program, lots of different organizations that someone could get involved in at their school based on their interest. And so clicking on these, getting involved, seeing what's available there. We can then look at neighborhood, right? So here, thinking about energy justice. So say you looked at that list of career areas and you're like, energy is really exciting to me. Here's, again, really simple, not advanced research, but really important, helpful research. Detroit Energy Justice Organization. So we see Detroiters working for environmental justice. It was an organization, the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice. We have Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition. These are all organizations that are working specifically on energy justice that we could connect with. And so I'm going to show you in a bit about what it looks like to actually go into their website and find folks to connect with. But I want to give us a rundown of some different ways we can find some organizations and start to build those connections. Another way that I think is really nice that sometimes students don't think about is actually using Google Maps to do some of these searches. So I used University of Michigan in Detroit because that's where I'm at, but I decided let's go to Portland. So I typed in Portland, and then I typed into the map. And so we have this map here, and you can see when I just type in Detroit energy organizations here without the map, there's lots of lists. Oftentimes there's going to be articles that are written that compile different organizations. I'll show you that in a moment. But in the map, it's kind of nice because we can get a sense of where things are geographically, and there might be a lot of things that come up on Google Maps that wouldn't show up in just a regular Google search. So we can see some of these different environmental organizations, where they're located. So this is also helpful thinking about your transportation to some of these organizations, if you're going to take public transit or if you want them to be close. So you can kind of come in here, see their information, see their website, looking at their names, which ones are interesting to you. So that would be one way to look again. And then generally, if you're thinking, maybe I'm not tied to a specific geographic location, but I am really interested in learning more about different types of food organizations. So if I type in food organizations into Google, and then usually there will be this list that comes up. So it would be the same if I typed in climate change organizations. We can do that search as well. You'll see different organizations listed here. So these could be ones that you're interested in. But as I mentioned, also, there will be different articles that come up. So for example, we have here 24 organizations finding food justice. We have descriptions of them. We have their locations. So you can go through and read and see which organizations are interesting and exciting to me. And from there, you can look at these organizations, read about them, find out about their mission, find out about the type of work that they're doing, and just write this down. So say that you look through Heal Food Alliance organization, and you're like, this is an organization that really appeals to me. Their values really align with the work I want to do. I'm really excited when I read about their work. Keep it on a spreadsheet and list all those organizations. So we looked at school, we looked at neighborhood, we looked at your city. And then I wanted to show you, we looked at, generally online, so not tied to a geographical area. I also wanted to show you a online opportunity. This is in a website called Catch a Fire. And so this would be a way for you to gain skills and do some volunteer work in a remote context. So they have causes here. So you can go on and you can click on environment. And then if there are specific skills that you want to use as well. So say we were excited about research, or excited about communications, you can add those skills there. And then there will be different opportunities that show up specifically related to the environmental field and using those skills. So another great way to connect with organizations outside of a specific geographical region, but through an online an online interface. So then we have also creating your own projects. So say you are really interested in food justice, but your school doesn't have a food justice organization. Thinking about how you can connect with other students who are interested in food justice, creating a flyer, posting it on a bulletin board, saying, if you're interested in food justice, email me, seeing if you can get the students to come together and form an organization. And then from there, connecting with organizations or schools, larger organizations doing this type of work, and gather some ideas and create your own campaigns. And so those are some examples of some different ways that you can find organizations based on your dreams, based on your interests, and start to build towards the path that's exciting for you. So we found the organizations, we listed them, and now the next step is to find people to reach out to. And so this can feel like an intimidating step for a lot of folks. I know that the panelists were very encouraging to connect with them. And so I want to share that oftentimes people that you're thinking about reaching out to that you might feel really intimidated to reach out to are very excited to connect with you. If you share in the line, I'm a student and I'm really interested in learning about your work, that is a really great invitation to folks because they are people that are passionate about the topics that you're passionate about. And so for them to hear that somebody who, say this person is really interested in climate change advocacy within the Denver community, and you say, I'm really excited about climate change advocacy within Denver, that's going to be a really inspiring meeting for that person to be able to connect with you and share about their insights, and know that you are also championing the same cause. And so think about it as an opportunity for you to learn, but also for somebody to have a really great experience of sharing about themselves and sharing insights for this fight that you all are collectively doing together. And so sharing lots of encouragement for reaching out, even though it can feel intimidating sometimes. And how do we reach out? What are the first steps for that? So finding people who are in entry-level positions. So, oops, I want to see chat. Okay. Amazing. Love the resources to design your own projects. All right, so we have HEAL, which was this organization here. So where can you go? So we looked at the organization, we decided this is a great organization for us. We can go to staff and really look and see who are the staff folks that are working here? What are their titles? Who sticks out to you, right? So maybe you say, okay, food and farm ecosystem coordinator, that is really exciting for me. I would love that type of position. So Candace might be a really good person to reach out to. We have different folks here talking about their work. One thing that I would keep in mind is when you're reaching out to somebody, you want to look for somebody that is an entry-level person. So we have political education director. You can definitely reach out to this person, but as an opening person to start talking to, oftentimes it can be great to reach out to an entry-level person. So what does that mean? That means oftentimes somebody that doesn't have director in their title, or somebody that doesn't have vice president in their title, right? So for example, here we have Rosie, who is the operations and events manager. And so this would be an example of a great person to reach out to. Introduce yourself, and I have an example of that here. So you could say something along the lines of, Dear Rosie, I hope you're having a good day. I'm an environmental studies student at the University of Michigan. I'm reaching out because I am interested in food justice, and reading your bio on Heal Alliance webpage was inspiring to me. I'd love to learn more about your path working on farms across the country, organizing with young farmers, and managing the farmers market. So that all comes from her bio. And what you're doing in sharing that is you're saying, I'm really interested in who you are and the work that you do. And that's always appealing to people, because people oftentimes, they love to share about themselves. They love to talk about their path and what they've done. And so you're saying, I'm interested in you. I'd love to learn more about you. I wanted to ask if you would have availability to meet with me for a 30-minute conversation over phone or video sometime over the next 2 weeks. So you're saying really clearly, this is what I would like to chat with you about, would love to learn more about your work. It's a really simple, easy ask for folks. And so this is a great way to start your connections, to let them know about your dreams, to share about the work that you're doing, and also learn about their role, and start to build that connection. So here we have this example of going to an organization website, finding somebody who's doing exciting work, reading their bio, sending that email, and reaching out to people. And then we can also use LinkedIn as a resource. So if you don't have a LinkedIn, I would encourage you to create one. You don't have to have it be beautiful at the start, but just being able to have this resource, which you can search and do so much in terms of finding people, finding organizations that are interesting to you. I've heard from students sometimes of, oh, I don't know if it seems so professional, it seems so businessy. I want to just be able to be myself. What I would say is you can use LinkedIn to be as authentic as you want to be in that space. And so you can share about the things that are really important to you. You can share about your personal style for how you approach environmental work. And it's really beautiful in terms of thinking about all the connections that you can make and the mentorship that you can find through a platform like this. And so one thing that we can do, for example, is we can search We Act for Environmental Justice, which I know is one of the organizations that shared for our panel. And then you can go through and see some of the different folks that work there and who you might want to connect with. And so you can see, for me, this is based on my connection level. And so anyone that is 3+, that's somebody that is, so who I'm connected with, there's 3 realms of connection. And so this would be the options in terms of how this person has set up their LinkedIn account. So I can either message them, I can create a subject, and I can say something very similar to what I said here, right? Of, I'm a student, I'm really interested in your work, I'd love to connect with you. Or you can do connect. You can share about how you know this person. And so these are just different functions. I wanted to go through them so you can see. Another way that folks can have their profile set up is that you can have it look like this, and then you can say add a note. And so this would be a 300 character limit note. So you're going to make it a little bit smaller. And basically you would say something along the lines of, hi, I'm a student, at high school or the university that you're at. I would love to learn more about your work doing X, Y, and Z. So you send that message, and then you hopefully get the connection approval that they have accepted your request. And then from there, you can ask them about setting up a time for you to share and chat and learn more about their job. So again, a great resource. Search for the organization, find folks that you're interested in, reach out. It can feel scary to hit that connect button, but know that there's so much solidarity and community with the environmental field of folks wanting to support each other and build each other up, especially for folks like you that are the hope and the future of the movement. So please be encouraged in reaching out in this way. And I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you could talk about in these conversations. So you've sent your email. So first you found your organizations, you found some people that you're really excited about, you've sent those connection requests, and now they've responded back and they say, yes, I will have a 30-minute phone call with you. Okay, so you're ready for your phone call. So here's some things you can do to prep. And make a list of the questions that you have about their job. So as you read through their bio, what do you want to learn about their story and their journey? What do you want to learn about the tasks that they do at that role? So go back to that dream list that you created with all of the workplace characteristics that you were excited about, the work-life balance, the flexible schedule, all of those things that you know that you want in your job, and ask them, what is the work-life balance like? What is the schedule like? What is the environment like? Get all of those details about the types of work that they do so that can inform, is this going to be a good fit for me? So ask all those questions during your conversation. You can have them typed up, you can take notes, whatever is your style and going to work best for you. You can send a follow-up message. This is really important. You want to thank them for their time. And then the last thing is to, decide if you liked talking to this person. So always send the thank you note. But I think sometimes students will say to me, okay, well, I talked to this person. That means that I have to, stay in touch with this person, and I have to, continue to be in communication with them. And if you don't enjoy the conversation, if you talk with them and you say, you know what, the work-life balance there didn't sound very good, the characteristics that they shared about in the job didn't really line up with what I'm looking for, definitely still send the follow-up message, but there's no obligation to continue to be in touch with that person. You had a great conversation, you thank them for your time, and then continue to look for folks that you do really align well with, and you do like the work that they're sharing and that they're doing and they're sharing about with you. And for those people, you can follow up and ask about further opportunities to work with their organization. So okay, I had a really wonderful conversation with you. I loved learning about Heal Food Alliance's work in communities. I'm wondering if there would be any upcoming opportunities to connect further, whether that's through volunteer work, whether that's through online support, whether that's an internship, right? So thinking about what your capacity is, like, is this an organization that's local and you could volunteer at, that you could offer those hours? Or is it something that you would maybe rather just be on a newsletter and hear about updates and see what you could commit to at that point? And so, yes, we have some great advice coming in about, not being discouraged about LinkedIn or email communication, and keep sending out conversation invites. Definitely, that's really good advice. And as I mentioned, if you can keep a list of folks, so maybe you have 10 folks on your list, and you go through and you send emails, and you're like, you should definitely congratulate yourself with some type of celebration or treat after you send those first emails, right? I did a great job. I sent all these connection requests. Maybe you hear back from 3, or maybe you hear back from 1, or maybe you don't hear back, but then have more folks that you're reaching out to. And there will definitely be people that respond back and are excited to connect with you. But yeah, I love the advice about not getting discouraged, and just keep moving on to those folks that are exciting to you and that are interested, that you're interested in their work. All right. So I'm going to show you this example. These are the instructions of drawing some connection circles. So as you're reaching out to folks, one thing that you can think about doing is building towards your dreams through these connections. And so these are the instructions. I'm going to show it to you in the next slide as the actual diagram. So this would be a drawing connections activity. And so what you can think about is, again, going back to those opening questions that I started with, what are my dreams for how I want to affect change or transformation? And then what types of collaborations would make that possible? So maybe you're, sitting at home on your computer and you're saying, this is something that I would be really excited about doing, but where do I start? So drawing this connection circle can be a really good place to start to build towards those dreams, because a lot of times we can't do things on our own. And so being able to think about who are your support people. So you draw yourself in the middle. And then you think about who are your closest support people. So people that you might want to brainstorm about this idea with, people that you might get some support in terms of talking through it and, putting up flyers and things like that. So my closest support people. Then the next part would be people I could reach out to for support and people I support. So who are some people that you could think about that could potentially be interested in this project, in this dream that you have, that would be good people to go to. And then the last circle would be people or organizations I want to connect with to impact change. So you've done some amazing work of looking at the organizations, finding who would be a good ally in terms of that work, and who would be a good resource in terms of understanding what the landscape is of the type of work that you want to do. Access to resources, so listing those on the outside there, and then thinking about the type of relationships that you want to have with those organizations and those people. So maybe you're really excited to do some climate justice organizing work that specifically has an education lens. And so you have some different environmental education organizations in your outer circle. You have somebody who that has done a project. Maybe it's not environmental related, but it's a similar type of project that you can ask, what was your process for putting together this type of a project? You have some amazing resources through the Eco Leaders program, right? So incorporating all of that into your dream and making sure that you have those connections put together. And then this last question here of what types of relationships do I want to build and how do I want to foster those? And so on this next slide here, I have some information about maintaining those connections. So for those folks that you were really excited about connecting with, here are some things that you want to make sure to do to foster and build those relationships and connections. Because sometimes what happens for folks is they connect with somebody and they had a great conversation, they sent the thank you note, and then they don't really stay in touch. And that's not to say that you can't reach out after 2 years and say hello, but if you're able to maintain that connection, able to check in every 6 months or every year and say, this is the type of work that I've been doing, happy Earth Day, that can be really good in terms of maintaining that connection. So when you're applying for a position or when you're letting someone know that you are looking for internship opportunities for the summer, you have that connection maintained. And so again, keep track of those connections, write down the names of everyone you've reached out to, having that list there that you can always go to and be like, okay, this is the person who is great to talk to, is just really helpful. And then, as we mentioned, adding more folks to the list so you don't get discouraged if you don't hear back. Just keep adding to that list, keep reaching out, sending the thank you notes. As I mentioned earlier, connecting on LinkedIn. And when you see, so you connected on LinkedIn, you see that that person has a update about maybe they've changed positions or they talk about a project. That's an opportunity for you to maintain a connection by congratulating them. Great job on your promotion. Great job working on this project, right? And great way to stay in touch. And then, as I mentioned earlier, sending them updates about the work that you're doing. So maybe you talk to them about a project that you are working on that's related to sustainable energy. And you say, I did this great project. I thought of you. I know that we talked about sustainable energy and I wanted to let you know that these are the results that we had. Or thinking about secular holidays, Happy New Year, Happy Earth Day, great ways to continue to maintain those connections with folks. All right, so testing it out, we're going to go through these slides. This is some ideas in terms of testing out everything that you put together. So again, you've dreamed about the work that you want to do. You have built some connections. This is really about a process of getting a sense of what you want to do, what will be a good fit for you. And then again, doing some work testing out. So more informational interviews. And by informational interview, I mean just the conversations that we were talking about where you're asking questions about somebody's job and what they do. Take classes related to the topics that interest you. So if you listed food systems, take a course on food systems, even if that's, through another organization that you find that's offering a class. Join a student organization or community organization that works on this topic. I think one area that folks can also think about is local government too. Is there a committee that's focused on sustainability that you could go and attend and see the work that's happening there? Volunteer at local organizations, intern at organizations, part-time work, and as we've been mentioning, create your own project and lots of eco leader resources around creating your own project. All right, I'm gonna just quickly talk about introducing yourself. This is a basic formula for introducing yourself when you're making those connections. You can share who you are. Again, always include you're a student, what you're doing. So academic studies, volunteer work, or future path. And the key part of this introduction is the why do you want to do it? So what is the motivation for the work that you are doing? If you are talking about working on food studies, why do you want to do that work? Who do you want to impact with the work that you're doing? So this is a really great way to introduce yourself. As you're thinking about talking about your experiences, whether that's in a conversation with somebody or whether that's through a resume, these are some ideas for how you can talk about your experiences. I recommend journaling, writing it down or typing into a document. What are some of the experiences that you've had, whether that's student organization, part-time job? What did you do? Just list out, like, what did you do? Created flyers, waited tables, hosted student meetings. And then the last part is really focusing in on what are those skills that you used. So now we get into the part of, okay, I used customer service skills. I used communication skills. I used problem-solving skills. And so this is an example of a little bit more work that you can do to really boost yourself up. So we've talked about creating a project. We've talked about working at student organizations. So once you're doing that work, this is how you can make sure to really boost that on a resume. So make sure to give yourself a title. So instead of just saying, I was a volunteer, you can say, I was a climate change action planning volunteer, right? Instead of just saying, I'm a participant, you can say, I'm a food justice student advocate. So give yourself a title that really reflects the work that you're doing. Add some adjectives that talk about the environmentally specific work you're doing. These are some ideas for bullet points. I won't go into too much detail since we're getting towards the end of our time, but making sure you're using those skill action verbs. So you organized, you facilitated, you designed, right? All of that amazing work. Talking about how many meetings, how many numbers of students. So say you were facilitating these meetings, list that out, and adding the purpose or the impact. So we'll show you in this last slide here what this could look like. So we're giving ourselves the title of Air Pollution Student Coordinator for the amazing work that you're doing in that role. The student organization, Students for Clean Energy, and then we have the example here, facilitated 5 meetings of 40+ students, resulting in the successful launch of a campaign divesting from fossil fuels, right? So we started with just, this is the thing I do, these are all the tasks I do. Then we went to the skills that you used, facilitation, and now we added some numbers, we added the impact, and we have this beautiful bullet here. So that's really what I wanted to share about talking about yourself. And as we wrap up, I wanted to give you all the opportunity, if you want to share in the chat, based on everything that was shared during the panel and the workshop today, thinking about what next steps you want to take. So we have some samples of reflecting on your interests, finding organizations, reaching out to people with jobs you're interested in, create connections, write out the experiences and skills, practice introducing myself, work on writing about my recent experiences on my resume, or ask about volunteering at an organization. So lots of different things coming out of our workshop today. Hopefully you all have some next steps that you can take, and it's been wonderful to be with you. And please feel free to reach out if there's any questions I can answer.
I do have one question that came up.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to paying attention to the news and paying attention to environmental justice, and then the stress that can bring about, and then adding to that the stress of seeking a job or reaching out to people you don't know. What advice do you have for young people that are trying to manage that stress while also moving forward with the career, wherever they're at in the career planning and job search process?
Definitely. That's such a great question. And I really like to, whenever I do a job search workshop, I always like to talk about thinking about the stress that folks are experiencing, because I think that really acknowledging it from the beginning is super important, and acknowledging that it's not just something that you're experiencing as an individual, it's something that is a natural human response to searching for a job where you need to have an income in order to survive. But then also, as you're saying, compounding with all the environmental stress that we're experiencing as a society. And so thinking about, first of all, acknowledging the stress, you're going to be facing stress, and acknowledging the specific ways that you experience stress. And then thinking about two things. One is, what is your support system for navigating stress? So for example, if a crisis thought that we're having is like, okay, I need to have an income, I need to find a job, thinking about who are the people who are going to be there and support you in that process. So does that mean that if I don't find a job within the next 3 months, I'm able to stay with my grandma, or I'm able to stay on the sofa of a friend? So thinking through who are the support people that are going to get you through this, that you can depend on. And then also thinking about the specific areas that are really a struggle for you and how you can receive support. For example, I was meeting with one student who said, I am so stressed out by looking at the jobs that I can't even look at the jobs. It just stresses me out so much. So what she did was she exchanged with a friend. And so a friend looked for jobs for her and she looked for jobs for the friend. So they were able to come up with that strategy based on the specific stress that they experienced, and build community in that way. And then the other thing I would say is always, again, celebrate yourself and treat yourself. So the job search process is very stressful. So what is helpful for you? Is that going to a coffee shop and writing there? Is that working with friends? Is that getting yourself a treat after you submit a certain number of job applications? And so thinking about how you can support yourself in terms of community, in terms of resources, knowing that you're going to be okay and you have a support system in place. And then the little micro things that you can do to make sure that you can actually get the work done, right? So going to the coffee shop, working with friends, having a friend exchange job, things like that. Some ideas.
Excellent. And we have a hand up. So go ahead and Samantha, you are able to unmute if you'd like to ask your question verbally. Don't see it. Samantha, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. Sorry, did I miss something? Where are we?
No, you're good. I was just trying to promote you to panelist in case that was why you weren't able to chat, but we hear you now.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
And did you have a question?
No, I didn't like mean to. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. I stepped away from my computer and I heard you guys call it. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
No worries.
All right. Well, that being said, I think we have, I don't think we have any other questions, but I want to thank you so much for such a really fantastic overview. So much information. I hope folks will view the recording and watch it again, because I am sure that even if you were paying close attention, you missed a few fantastic tips. So thank you so much for participating, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thank you. And yeah, please feel free to reach out if you all have questions. Really excited to hear about the work that you're doing. And like I said earlier, you all give us so much hope thinking about the future of our world. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Take care. And everyone, tomorrow we'll be starting a couple hours earlier, 4 p.m. Eastern, and the focus will be on careers in sustainable transportation. So hope you'll join us tomorrow. Take care.